Electoral reform, because I think, how many of you marched in the Bersih protest? Okay, good to see fellow alumni of the Bersih University of Democracy. You have electoral reform, which is Bersih's bread and butter issues. Bersih is formed because of electoral reform. Bersih is formed to combat unfair delineation that was done that basically ensured Pak Las victory in 2004 election. And we have Maria here with us, who were arrested under SOSMA during Bersih time. The sacrifices of past Bersih leaders and the amount of sheer work that they have done to usher in a new era of democratization in Malaysia is something we cannot take for granted, and we must continue to struggle for electoral reform, the very reason Bersih was founded. Civil liberties, very important for Bersih. Of course, we have friends, Suara, who is an endorsing NGO of Bersih, and the human rights angle, Suara is definitely taking the lead. But certain civil liberties issue, for example, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, is closely associated with Bersih. And this is something that we have to track as well. Institutional reform, obviously, because we realize that electoral reform alone is not enough. You need to ensure major public institutions are functioning and independent. For example, Attorney General Chambers, which we are calling for separation of Attorney General and Public Prosecutor. You're looking at MACC, where the head of the MCC can be appointed or renewed without parliamentary oversight. And you have seen cases in 1MDB where the head of MACC and AG can be removed for political reasons. This report doesn't cover things like economic inflation. It doesn't cover things like ESL subsidy. It doesn't cover things like macam-macam benda lagi lah. If we were to cover all that, it will not have a special contribution to what is already out there. You have economic banks and everyone doing analysis on this. This is not what it's about. I'm not saying these are not important, but there are other people that are doing this. Okay, next. Remember when we say about two-part evidence-based framework to evaluate this government's reform agenda? The first part is basically assessing the unity government's fulfillment of the reform agenda. Basically evaluating them on their own terms. Scores are based on reforms fulfilled, in progress, or unfulfilled. So if they fulfill a particular reform item, we give them a score of 2. In progress, we give them a score of 1. Unfulfilled or promised broker, we give them a score of 0. So that's the first part. And we give that a weightage of 70% because we believe that is the reason why a lot of people, voters, give their support. It's like a contract, basically. The political parties canvass for votes from citizens of Malaysia. We are offering you this reform agenda. Vote for us. We will try to fulfill it. Now, it's midway through the contract. We have signed the contract. Both parties enter the contract with informed consent and everything, hopefully consenting adults. Now, the contractor has to deliver. Midway through their term, the client is checking. The client, the rakyat lah, the commissioner, we are checking in whether how much progress is being made and so on. Okay, the second part is comparing PMX reform performance relative to past Prime Minister. And we are picking the 4 most recent ones. Scores are based on a scale of 1 to 5 of how Anwar's reforms and initiatives compare with those of previous leaders. Higher scores indicate that PMX has made substantial advances in reform compared to those other Prime Ministers. Right? Because you can't evaluate something in a vacuum. Absolutely. You have to compare him or her in a situation of similar position and how they perform or underperform in this case. Okay. This is the grading scale. So you have the 70%, you have the 30%. After you tabulate the score, this is how you grade. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it because it's something you have to face for 12 years or wait, 17 years. Long, quite long. I still have nightmares waking up that I missed my SPM paper. So yeah, definitely something ingrained because of trauma. So A, bagus lah. B, strong, but so-so. 3, moderate. D, limited. E, weak. And F is failing. And of course, before we review the grade that we give the unity government today, let's address also the elephant in the room where in this same room a few months ago, Faisal gave the score of F to unity government on the area of electoral reform. So, score of F on electoral reform a few months ago. Have that changed? Now, we will see later when Faisal present the findings. But today, we are also evaluating two other agendas, institutional reform and civil liberties. That is why the score might be different today. Okay. This is a scenario. We want to make sure that we are very transparent about our methodology. So this is a scenario to help you understand. So part one, the manifesto accountability part. Let's say, hypothetical scenario. Government obtained a score of 40 out of maximum 68. 40 divided by 68 times 7%, you get 41.2%. Part two, if out of 5 prime ministers, if they are ranked number 4, the higher the better. So 4 out of 5 times 30%, you got 24%. Add those two, you got 65.2% in a grading scale that we decided earlier. That's C. Is that understood? How we arrive at the empirical. So this is a very empirical assessment of the government. Okay. I think, okay, I'll present, pass it to Faisal, who will present the findings, part 1, part 2, and the total score. And let's see if we continue to give the government F.
That's it, got it. Alright, before I proceed, I need to stress one point that, or one premise, why we do all these things. Because we want to keep people, keep hopeful with the reform agenda. I think all of you have known, the ruling party, when they were in the opposition, they always talk about reform, BRD, and so on. And there is no strong voice from the opposition coalition that talk about reform. And our concern, if there is no more hope, I mean, to speak on behalf of people to advocate for the reform, then that is the reason why we, Bersih, not only Bersih, but others as well, we take up leadership to always do all these kind of things, to be critical to the government, to always talk about reform, so that people can always remember about reform is very important. It's a key pillars, I mean, to drive this country forward. So this is the announcement of part 1. As Colin said about the manifesto accountability, it's very important. 70% of all scores derived from this manifesto, because as we have known, manifesto is very important, it's critical. It is bound, otherwise there is no string attached to the politicians when they hold power. Next. Yeah, next. Okay, actually we listed down several key issues about institutional reform, electoral reform and civil liberties, and we have made a thorough soccer research about the position of the government about all these kind of key reforms, whether it is fulfilled or partially or with little progress or unfulfilled. So, first about fair delineation. Of course, as of now, there is no engagement by EC or by ministry or by government to talk about fair delineation. I think we have addressed this issue. Now Malaysia is in a very bad situation about malapportionment, but still there is none in terms of progress made by the government to address this issue about delineation process, fair delineation. Second, reform the appointment of EC members and EC chair. We have seen the appointment of the current EC chair not made through Parliament Select Committee, even though it was a promise by the PIS, not only being but also by BN, Barisan Nasional. The key appointments, AG for example, and also EC chair for example, governor, Bank Negara governor, it must be done at least through consultation with the Parliament. So none has been done by this current government, so 0, unfulfilled. And then declassify of electoral reform committee report. For it is weird. We don't know why the government still refused to declassify this electoral reform committee report. It was done by PH Tun Mahdi 2.0. This report. And then amendment of outdated Electoral Officers Act. We can see the progress. Even just now we had consultation with EC. They have plans to get involved with all CSO about this amendment of the Election Officers Act (DOA) next year. and we hope we can have more engagement of the amendment of EOA. And actually, it was, in the cabinet meeting, it was addressed by Azalina about the amendment of EOA. And then introducing Political Finance Act, there is a progress, and through FPBGM policy, especially through YB Wongsen, and from what we understand, the draft was there, but at the end of the day, it depends on when government wants to materialize this Political Finance Act, and then provide absentee ballot voters for Sabah and Sarawak, still unfulfilled, and then roadmap for local election, of course, none to be discussed by government or EC. Okay, next. The institutional reform, 10 years term limit, none, 0. Separation of power between public prosecutor and Attorney General, okay, we can see the progress. The President has made several engagements, even cooperative studies with other countries as well. But of course, we need to expedite this reform. And then appointment through special site committee. The key appointments, FHCC and others must be through Parliament Special Site Committee. None. And then public finance and fiscal responsibility, yes, it is fulfilled. So credit to the government because at least they have done this. And then ombudsman still in progress. There is engagement, but still we are waiting for the progress. Next. Okay. Banyak lagi. Okay lah, kita go fast lah. Okay, about the audit, Bill 2034 to empower Auditor General, it is fulfilled. It was said by Prime Minister himself. And then devolution of power to the state, we can see little progress, especially to Sabah and Sarawak, but we expect more for other states as well. But at least devolution of power to Sabah and Sarawak will lead the way for, devolution of power to other states as well. And then, Peace and Parliament Act, no. Parliamentary Services Act, yes, it is in progress. We keep waiting when the government will table this PSA, and we were told that PSA, draft of PSA also is ready, but they keep postponing to next session. But I hope really next session will be tabled for the PSA. And then CDF, equal CDF for opposition at none. And then National Freedom of Information Act, yeah, there was engagement, but we don't know the progress. And then reform, okay, Whistleblower Protection Act, okay, there is a progress. Official Cigarette Act classification subject to decision, yes, it is unfulfilled. About the OSC, and then Government Procurement Act, there is engagement. Okay, empower the IPCC, none. And then I think the Prime Minister question time, yes, it is fulfilled. I think for the first time, since independence, we don't see Prime Minister good enough to have this Prime Minister question time. And then the increase of the number of motions from 2 to 4. This is in Kamakas. This is a new law for the Kamakas, so it is done. Positive things done by government. And then if PSSC has stronger oversight in terms of reference, okay, it is fulfilled. And then moratorium for the NAA unfulfilled. Next. Okay, repeal just Recorded Acts, so smart Act here unfulfilled. Okay, amend the PPA, MCMC Act, no. Okay, Peaceful Assembly Act also none. And then pass the abolition of mandatory death penalty, yes, it is fulfilled. I think there are several offences included under this abolition of death penalty, 2023. And then establish and support an independent Public Council, there is a progress. And then about ISA and Statutory Bodies Act, yes, there is in progress, but we need to expedite the process. Okay, citizenship amendment to grant Malaysian mothers equal rights. Yes, it is fulfilled. even though it is not perfect, but at least if you look from the picture of the manifesto, both PHAP and at least it is fulfilled, even though it's not perfect. We can discuss about this as well. And then amendment of Suhakam Act, yes, it is fulfilled. You can read through Suhakam website. They mention about this significant change about the Suhakam Act. Okay, next. Okay, that's part 1. So we go to part 2, comparative benchmarking. Okay, I think you know about the score. Next. Okay, basically we compare 2 years of the Madani government, 2 years of the Najib, and also overall his leadership lah. I mean, when he was Prime Minister, Mahathir of course PM7 when he was Prime Minister during his time, and Muhyiddin and overall, number 1 is the worst. So Najib, even though we give credit to him, at least he repeat ISA, but over the years, prior to 2018, he had done many worse things lah, the AG and so on. So he's still the worst. And second worst is Muhyiddin. He closed down the parliament, and nothing much can be done in terms of democratic process and so on. And then number 3 is PMX. Number 4 is Mahathir during his time, and then number 5 is Ismail Sabri lah. At least what we can highlight during Ismail Sabri time, he managed to secure agreement with the opposition. He granted the CDF, Constitution Development Fund, to opposition, and he had the ability or courage to discuss with the opposition to enact anti-poaching law. So there are many progress. There were many progress during Ismail Sabri time. Okay, so we have 18%. Okay, next. Oh, let's wait. So according to the calculation that we mentioned just now, 70% derived from the performance of the manifesto, and then comparative benchmarking. So we got 45.8%. So what we really mean is what was presented by Koni, slow progress of the reform and significant gap between the promise of the reform and the implementation of the reform. So overall, that is not failure. I mean, to be fair, as I presented, for example, the abolishment of the Death Penalty Act, for example, there are still progress that the government has done, but still, for us, still in a low pace. We need to go more. Next. Okay, okay, this is a brief about the opposition, but we won't give scorecard for the opposition because they are opposition. Okay, next. Okay, basically, how do we evaluate opposition? First, about the policy alternative, schedule cabinet formation, the function of the schedule cabinet by the opposition, parliamentary engagement and effectiveness, accountability, oversight, and then also sensitive issues, political approach. Next. Okay, we can see, there is a lackluster of opposition in terms of their performance when we talk about check and balance, and that's the reason why I said just now, why Bersih and other CSO, we take up leadership to talk about reform, to talk about check and balance, because we don't want to see, people lose hope to talk about this issue, because there is no effective check and balance by the opposition when it comes to reform agenda. And then structurally disadvantage, of course, we know about the issue of unequal CDF, there is no CDF, and that is the reason why we always push the Prime Minister and government to give equal funding to the parliamentarians from the opposition. And then, yes, I think you know about this rhetoric, racial, religious issue, always being their trump card over the reform agenda. And then they need the opportunity. In terms of parliament seats, they are sizable. They have very strong numbers in parliament, but still, they miss the opportunity to voice out the concern. I mean, to be check and balance in parliament. And then senior leaders for parliamentary attendance. I think we are going to consider that people always, viral the photo in the parliament during PM question time. The three main opposition leaders still, they absent from parliament. And then next. Okay, this is what we advocate for. For us, both government and opposition, they need to leverage the MOU negotiation. Like what was done by Ismail Sabri. As I said, Ismail Sabri managed to do at least the kind of reform because he managed to secure MOU between the opposition and also the government. Okay, and then of course about the CPF. For us, it is not just about Prime Minister discretionary power to give or to provide CPF to the opposition, but it must be legislated through the act of law. And then, of course, we need to have more bipartisan government. Multi-party democracy is very important thing. I mean, of course, when we talk about politics, people always talk about adversary, politics, fighting each other. But sometimes we need to have more bipartisan government when it comes to common ground agenda, a very important agenda and so on. Next. Okay, and then of course, opposition needs to engage more with civil society, and also the opposition must adopt the reform-driven approach. Okay, next. Okay, this is a conclusion that I said. D reflects the limited progress and there is a gap between rhetoric and action in terms of reform implementation. Okay, next. Okay, these are the recommendations. I think this is a midterm result. Okay, this is not final result. Maybe next year or before GE, we will do the same thing. So what we recommend, macam cikgu lah, bila cikgu bagi keputusan di, so what kind of improvement that student should do so that you can get B or A. So of course, this is the key important issue. I think government, they need to enact PSAs. I think it should be next year or next Parliament City. Political Financing Act, they need to amend the Election Officers Act. They need to introduce 10 years term limit for Prime Minister. Fix the Parliament Act, and also this is key important separation between AG and PP. Okay, and then Parliament takes oversight in the appointment process. Okay, and then for the key appointment. Review, repeal, and or amend any repressive laws. Legislate equal CDF for all parliamentarians, regardless of any political divide. And then recognition and empowerment of scheduled cabinet. The government need to address malapportionment through fair delineation, and also absentee voting for Sarawak and Sabah in particular, who reside in Peninsular and Malaysia Besar. Next. Okay, so this is QR code. If you want to have, or if you want to download, you can scan this QR code, and you can make a cooperative. If you disagree, maybe you can comment through your social media. Okay, thank you. I come to.
Thank you, Faisal and Kopin, for the report card presentation. In case you missed the QR code, we have it listed at the back on the glass wall, so feel free to scan the QR code. Now I invite Faisal, Kopin, Thomas Pan, and Maria Chin for the launching gimmick of the report card. Please welcome.
Atas. Bila waktu tinggal saya ni lah, kat bawah ni. Sorry lah, pen merah ni macam marah kan? Sure. Sekali dong. Boleh, okay? Ini jom, saya gambar. Mana dekat sekarang?
Nak tulis lulus ke tidak lulus?
Oh ya.
We will now have another photo session with us and the audience. I kindly request everyone to please stand up once again.
Wait, you take one day. Take another one.
Take out je. Kita find lah.
Like mana dia? Oh, okay.
Dengan okay lah. I think
The other way around.
Please fill up the middle section. Please fill up the middle section for the group photo.
Okay. Kira. Mana satu? Okay.
Sorry, jap.
Okay.
One. Okay. Sini. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you to all for the launching ceremony and for the photo session. Please take a seat.
Boleh stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now watch a video clip prepared by Bersih showcasing the trajectory of Malaysian politics from 2016 until now. Please enjoy.
One NPD is one of the biggest frauds, financial fraud in history.
The disappearance of billions of dollars from Malaysia's state fund is one of the biggest financial scandals, not just in Malaysia, but around the world.
Of the $8 billion that one NDB raised by a bond sale, it's alleged more than half was stolen.
Calling for an object head.
They are fed up with the government that they believe is quietly corrupt. Dr. Mahathir telah menghantar surat pelbagai jawatan sebagai Perdana Menteri.
Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad committed resignation to the king. The soft move follows 24 hours of political drama, which saw in the country Mahathir's ally to bring down the government.
Critics are calling the death of democracy. China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus,
Coronavirus.
coronavirus.
3 kes, 95 kes, 277.
Untuk itu, kerajaan memutuskan untuk melaksanakan perintah kawalan perang.
Malaysia's 15th general election will see for the first time 18 to 20-year-olds casting their ballots. Malaysia is facing a harm problem for the first time in its history.
Dear audience, I am now delighted to introduce our moderator for tonight's forum. Ashraf Sharafi is the Senior Manager of Bersih. He has been an integral part of Bersih since 2017, working under the leadership of 4 chairpersons, Maria Chin, Shahrul Aman, Thomas Pan, and Faisal Aziz. Fresh from his recent return from Sri Lanka, where he participated in UNFREL's election observation mission, Ashraf brings a wealth of experience and insights to our discussion today. I now hand over the session to Ashraf to moderate the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good evening to all. Welcome to our tonight's forum entitled Have We Achieved Change? 2 years of unity government, 8 years after Bersih 5. Adakah kita sudah menggapai perubahan? 2 tahun selepas Kerajaan Perpaduan dan 8 tahun selepas Bersih 5. So this year, seperti kita tahu, mark 25 years since the reformasi movement began. A movement that called for justice, accountability and to end systemic corruption. 8 tahun lepas, kita semua, mungkin kebanyakan kita telah took the street, berjalan, berdemonstrasi untuk menuntut satu tuntutan, iaitu free and fair elections. Betul tidak? Dan pada hari ini ada di antara kita yang telah berada di tampuk kekuasaan, ada yang daripada kita yang still fighting with our civil society, dan ada juga yang masih lagi menuntut perubahan-perubahan yang lain melalui cara-cara dan kaedah-kaedah yang dirasakan sesuai pada ketika ini. Lalu this raises an important question. Do the politicians that fight among us before have clear vision and political will to deliver the reform they want to champion, or have the pressure of governance and political compromise weaken their resolve? Tonight, as we reflect on the journey since Bersih 5 and the broader reformasi movement, we are here to assess adakah kita telah melakukan satu progress towards perubahan yang kita lawan selama ini, ataukah ada cabaran-cabaran tersebut telah melemahkan iltizam, keazaman kita untuk mencapai reformasi. Bersama kita pada malam ini 3 orang panel yang tidak asing lagi. Panel pertama adalah Malaysiakini Abdullah, mantan pengurusi Bersih daripada tahun 2013 hingga 2018. Saya persilakan. Maria adalah Malaysian politician and social activist who served as a member of parliament for Petaling Jaya from May 2018 to November 2020. She also held the Bersih rally dan ditangkap pada malam ini juga ataupun malam sebelum beberapa hari sebelum bersama kawan kita Madik di hujung sana. As a social activist, Maria also champions both women election and human rights issues. Bersama panel kedua adalah Thomas Pan, pengurusi Bersih, Bersih chairperson from 2018 to 2022. So Bersih, Thomas served during the Pakatan Harapan 140, Sheraton, and also the Sebagai government. He played a key role in mobilizing the Bersih 4 and 5 rallies, advocating for electoral reforms and transparent governance. Thomas also is currently the chairperson of Engage. And finally, our third panelist for today, the current chairperson of Bersih, Faisal Abdul Aziz. Faisal, a former president of ABI, also a law graduate from UIA, has extensive experience in advocating for human rights and democratic rights in Malaysia. Faisal also a former student activist and previously served as the deputy chairperson of Bersih in 2018. Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the absence of Syahrul. So kita sepatutnya ada panel keempat, iaitu Syahrul Aman, who is the acting chairperson in 2018, but unfortunately could not join us tonight because due to health reasons. So Syahrul navigate Bersih during a particularly crucial time in 2018 before the GE14. And we also had invited Ambiga and Pak Samad, who also the current steering committee in 2013, kata silap. But unfortunately, they also have their other commitments and cannot join us tonight. So our discussion tonight will revolve around 3 key themes. The first is the performance of the unity government in governance and its effort to deliver reform. Second is the progress and gaps in electoral reform, ensuring free and fair elections to remain as a reality. And ketiga, the impact of the Bersih movement in shaping Malaysia's political and democratic landscape, and more importantly, the role Bersih and civil society can play today in advancing reforms and holding the government accountable. So, for the meeting, we have 4 rounds. With the first and second rounds, I will ask questions to the panelists. The third round, we will open the floor to the audience to ask questions. And the final round is the conclusion. So each of the panelists have 5 minutes to present their views, to share their views on reforms, on the issue that we are discussing today. And then we have a Q&A for all to give opinions and to ask questions. But please make it brief. Without further ado, let's begin by inviting I will ask the first questions to all melihat kembali 8 tahun selepas Bersih 5 dan kini 2 tahun. Pada 24 November ini akan 2 tahun Kerajaan Perpaduan. The only meaningful and systemic reform is the only 18 that enfranchise more Malaysians to be able to vote and then anti-hopping law through the MOU between Pakatan Harapan and also the federal government. And soalan saya kepada panelis, adakah kalian masih percaya Malaysia is on the right path towards reform that will help our nation achieve democratic ideals of justice, accountability and to protect human rights, yang juga adalah the people demands dan menjadi teras kepada gerakan bersih dan juga gerakan reformasi. Saya mulakan dengan Maria, boleh?
No, okay.
Ya. Silakan 5 minit ya.
Salam sejahtera dan terima kasih kepada Bersih ya untuk memberi saya ruang untuk berkongsi pandangan. Sebelum saya jawab, boleh saya ambil 1 minit ya, kerana ini adalah untuk kita meraihkan Bersih 5 dan itu adalah satu tindakan yang sangat amat penting kepada saya, kerana kalau kita tidak ada sokongan daripada anda semua dan rakyat Malaysia, kita tak ada di sini ya. Saya rasa ya, rakyat dan juga ramai orang ya adalah tiang yang kukuh untuk Bersih. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, I think my voice also fine. Dan saya hendak ya mengucapkan terima kasih kepada mereka, rakyat Malaysia, himpunan hijau, kita lawan yang berada di sini, semua AJK yang berada di Bersih, ya 2.0. Selain daripada Ambiga, Pak Samad, Dr. Kim Woon, Hisham dan juga JJ Prakash yang saya tak nampak mereka berada di sini, dan juga Kokfa dan semua, Andrew dan juga staff Sekretariat Bersih, dan kita tidak boleh lupakan ya contribution daripada mereka ya, seperti Mandip yang berada di sini ya, sekarang dia sudah membantu Gobin, Zoe yang sudah jadi komisioner dalam SPR. Ini adalah pencapaian daripada Bersih ya, dan saya rasa Bersih bukan bergantung kepada tindakan seorang, bukan bergantung kepada Ambiga saya dan panel yang berada di sini. Ya, kita jangan lupa akar umbi yang telah berkorban, yang telah bagi kita komitmen dan bagi kita sokongan selama 8 tahun. Ya, dan lepas tu mereka yang jatuhkan kerajaan. It is not about the individual. It is about the rakyat. They are the ones yang memutuskan the direction of this country. So let us not forget them. Dan saya rasa reform yang ada di bawah UG yang report yang ada, saya rasa khawatir sedikit that they get D. I thought it would be F. Okay. Dan kerana saya khawatir tentang the atmosphere that we are facing now, race and religion, yang mana saya rasa ada disentuhkan, tapi tentang opposition. Tapi adakah kita tak nampak yang daripada UG sendiri, mereka juga mempolitisasikan agama dan juga race. And we have to be critical about it. Let us Let us do a fair assessment of what is happening to our country now. And we have to recognize that itu ada kesan kepada reformasi yang kita hendak. Kerana kalau kita tidak kritikal tentang apa yang berlaku di negara ini dan senyap bila isu agama dan juga bangsa disentuhkan dengan secara yang sangat emosional untuk mempolitisasikan isu-isu ini, dan kita senyap sebagai rakyat, itu adalah saya rasa tak boleh diterima lah. Dan juga daripada kerajaan UG, they have kept quiet about the race and religion. Dan tiba-tiba kita dapat RUU seperti Mufti Bill. Why do we need the Mufti Bill? Tak ada perbincangan dengan secara luas, secara teliti, secara yang transparent. Tapi kita sekarang ada Mufti Bill dan ada kesan kepada negara ini. Dan juga kita tiba-tiba ada satu akta yang sentuh house arrest. Mengapa kita perlukan akta RUU, bukan akta lagi, RUU house arrest yang mana dalam akta penjara, the Prisons Act, Section 3, kita dah ada clause yang sentuh tentang house arrest. So why suddenly do we need a RUU house arrest? So you can't blame people for speculation when you do this. Dan sekarang saya yang kena sosma, tapi sekarang UG yang dinampak mempertahankan sosma, and it bothers me. It really bothers me. Dan sosma digunakan bila tentang isu GISP. Kalau kita hendak membatalkan sosma daripada buku undang-undang kita, mengapa kita masih teruskan menggunakan sosma? So I think that there are quite a number of reforms on the way. Tapi apa yang saya rasa, the low hanging fruits, mereka pun dapat salah. The Citizens Bill, the Citizens Amendment to the Constitution, it is a real washed up. Yang dijanji hanya satu saja, bagi hak kepada wanita untuk memberi kewarganegaraan untuk anak-anak mereka. Tapi mereka tambah lagi yang lebih represif. Dan walaupun ada protes daripada civil society, sekarang UG government tak dengar. Tak dengar. Tak ada effort untuk mengubah pindaan yang sangat represif ini. Dan saya rasa kalau kita hendak membawa reformasi, kita nak jadi kritikal juga kepada UG government ini. Dan bukan kerana kita hendak jadi kritikal saja, tapi ini adalah untuk negara kita. Thank you.
Baik, terima kasih Maria. Sebenarnya kita senang aku nak tekan okey ni sebab tiga-tiga ni bos. Baik, dan terima kasih Maria. I think banyak poin yang telah diutarakan oleh Maria sebagai analisis beliau terhadap juga laporan yang Bersih kemukakan, dan ada tambahan daripada beliau. Jadi saya persilakan sebenarnya Thomas, mungkin ada sisi pandang yang lain dari sudut penilaian terhadap adakah kita sedang bergerak ke arah reformasi yang sebenarnya ataupun bagaimana. Baik.
Terima kasih Saudara Ashraf, dan terima kasih Saudara Faizal kerana jemputan hari ini, dan salam kepada Maria juga. So good evening to all of you. Dengan easy saya akan guna bahasa Inggeris, campur. juga. So soalan, the question is, are we on the right path to reforms? You know, we have seen several change of government under the term that I was the chair of Bersih from 2018 to 2023 last year. I oversaw 4 prime ministers. And I think that's just something to comment on the state of politics that our country went through. It was an upheaval time. We went through all these things because we achieved for the first time in our history the historic peaceful change of government in 2018. And I think this is something that I want to really echo what Maria has said. It is you, the people, who made it possible. Without the rakyat, we would never have achieved that. You know, Bersih is not about the personalities, the individuals, the leadership that we are really thankful for, but it is really a people's movement that came to a point that said, enough is enough, it's time for us to take back our country. And 2018 GE14 was remarkable, historic, and irreversible. Because from that time onward, I think all the governments that came, all the politicians that came, are reminded of one thing. We have the power to change them. If they do not perform, if they do not deliver, we have the power in the ballot box to hold them accountable. I think that is something that we should celebrate. Now, granted, it's not perfect yet. Electoral reform. That's why Bersih started off demanding clean and fair election. Clean and fair election basically makes sure that the voice of the rakyat are heard and the voice of the majority can determine who forms government for the next 5 years. Now, we know that there are a lot of structural injustice in the electoral system, gerrymandering, malapportionment. We have one of the worst in the world when it comes to malapportionment of our boundary. And yet, despite all that thing, you know, we, the rakyat, came out in good numbers and made our vote counts. And Pakatan Harapan are given 2 bites at the cherry. 2018 and 2022, yes, it's not a complete majority, but they are the senior partner in this unity government. Now, that shows to me one thing very clearly. The rakyat wants to see reform. Because if they do not want to see reform, they would just continue to vote for the old government. But the aspiration of the rakyat is to see systemic changes in our country. So, Bersih, as a movement, you know, realize that change is not just about changing government, changing prime minister, but it is really changing the system. It is about identifying the areas where there are structural unfairness to the rakyat and to other parties. It is identifying areas that are loopholes for politicians to basically be corrupt and plunder the country like what we saw in 1MDB. Now, the work of Bersih is far from over. You know, it's really far from over because changing government did not change the system. Governments that came after Najib continue to enjoy the same power the same power till today. Structurally, nothing much has changed. On the surface, yes, I think perhaps, arguably, maybe some may say not true, but there have been progress in the sense of that I think the media enjoyed after 2018 a bit more space. Okay, there have been progress in the sense of engagement. Now, prior to 2018, Maria and all of us had no opportunity to engage with the government of the day. We were banned even from parliament. We were not even allowed to go near Putrajaya. But after 2018, there was openness, there was engagement. Yes, I agree fully with the marks given by the current Bersih committee team, because we are disappointed that the progress has been slow. It has not been delivered, but it is moving at a snail pace. And that's why I applaud the committee, led by Faisal and Kopin, for the work they have done. I congratulate them on the methodology that they came up with to measure governments. Now, this has never been done before. I don't know whether it's been done in other countries, but what we are doing here is groundbreaking. A method, 30 seconds. Okay. A method of holding our government accountable, which is necessary, and continue to propose solutions to strengthen our democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Terima kasih, Saudara Thomas. Baik, seterusnya saya persilakan Saudara Faisal Aziz untuk menyambut. Bersih telah berjumpa dengan Perdana Menteri, kita telah berjumpa dengan beberapa orang. Adakah kita masih lagi dalam landasan reformasi ini? Baik, teruskan Tuan.
Baik, terima kasih Ashraf. I think saya ada dua jawapan. Jawapan yang mudah, dengan kehadiran rakan-rakan di sini, sebenarnya kita ada peluang untuk melihat progress in terms of our democracy. If you notice, last year there have been several NGOs organizing like public forum, event and so on, in conjunction with the 2 years of Malaysian government. So meaning to say, there is a hope, from the eyes of the people, kita masih lagi menaruh harapan untuk bawa perubahan, explicitly show the concern from the people. Kalau tak, orang tak buat dah forum ni, kita tak buat dah discussion whatever about Madani. And then next week PSM also will organizing satu event Madani untuk siapa. So inilah kekuatan-kekuatan gerakan rakyat untuk membawa discussion supaya kita boleh bawa kembali harapan besar rakyat after COVID-19. Tapi untuk menjawab soalan yang lebih detail, I think we need to recall the historical part of our democratization process in Malaysia. Saya letak dua perbezaan. I think, okay, first, since the existence of the Bersih, 2007, around that, until 2018. Okay, from 2007 until 2018, we can see the progress. Even though, like, ada yang kita tangkap semua. Tapi at least, our tuntutan and indelible aim, contohnya. And then in 2018, we can see SPR having more open to accept observers from diverse political party, from CSO, to ensure there is a transparency in terms of counting process. So actually kita tak nanti kan, like Thomas said juga, dulu semua orang tak boleh, tapi kita ada ruang untuk penambahbaikan. That's one thing. Yang lain dapat, kalau kita pergi sebelum 2007, I think it is very important. I always love to refer one book lah, Hickling Malaysian Public Law. Sebab buku Hickling ni, he told about the history of Constitution Amendment in Malaysia. So, I want to highlight 3 important amendments lah, ataupun actually banyak Hickling cerita tentang Malaysia punya Constitution Amendment that show the regression of the democratization process in Malaysia. First, in 1962, before or prior to 1962, the delimitation the power to delimit constituency only left to HPR. But after that, constitution was amended. So by having simple majority of the parliament seat will be sufficient to effect the change. Maksudnya, you can trigger delimitation by simple majority. Meaning to say, it is the decision of the politicians untuk review seat, tambah seat semua lah kan. Second, I think all of you aware about our judicial crisis in 1958 Constitution Amendment. The term judicial power dalam artikel 121 Constitution, it was erased. Mungkin bagi kita, biasalah erase. Tapi, you know, when the term judicial power rests to High Court, the term judicial power was erased during that time, it gives a big implication. And then followed by, waktu tu banyak legislation putting obstacle. For example, decision made by Director General of certain department shall be conclusive, should not be remedied, should not be appealed in the court. So ini memang dia menghalang kuasa mahkamah untuk check and balance kuasa executive. Ini constitution crisis lah. And then PSA, previously PSA was there in 1963, tapi in 1992 PSA dah tak ada. So we make comparison between after Merdeka sampai 2007, and then after 2007 sampai 2018. So kita ada pilihan, kita nak progress atau regress. So satu dalam konteks ini, I mean what Bersih really emphasize on is about the structural change. I think I need to stress. So dalam isu ni, even about corporate, we talk about this. Of course, 2018 we need to bring down the regime, but the main issue is we fail to bring the structural change. Even until now, if we manage to bring the structural change, at least we can kita boleh menghalang, you know, our country from reversing back to the square one. The existing problem that we always discuss until today because lack of structural change. Jadi, berbalik kepada persoalan, adakah kita progress atau tidak, benda ni juga yang kita bahaskan. I think now, post-election 2020, the current Madani government, even though whatever lah alasan together with UMNO or whatever, they have to step up to bring change. Otherwise, kita akan regress. Tapi kalau if they bring to bring change to bring the structural change, reform, at least we can see bright future ahead. Thank you.
Terima kasih saudara-saudara. Dapat Nasir. Terima kasih sekali lagi kepada semua panel untuk round yang pertama. Mungkin saya boleh rangkumkan secara ringkas. Kita telah lama berjuang. Tidak lama sangat, 8 tahun sebelum Bersih 5. Kita telah turun ke jalan dan harapan-harapan itu masih ada untuk kita terus bakar, terus nyalakan. Tetapi saya rasa apa yang Bersih cuba buat dalam tempoh transisi peralihan demokrasi ini adalah bagaimana kita nak seimbangkan antara semangat kita terdahulu dan juga strategi kita sekarang untuk mendepani cabaran-cabaran terkini bagi kita tetap terus membawa arus perubahan, polisi-polisi yang baik untuk negara. Jadi kita akan ke pusingan ke seterusnya. Kita akan memulakan dengan Maria sekali lagi ya. Okey, boleh kan? Boleh. Okey, sebab Maria dah mengetuai ataupun memimpin bersama rakan-rakan lain dalam beberapa siri demonstrasi. Siri Bersih 3, Bersih 4, Bersih 5. Kemudian Maria juga telah bertanding dan menang dalam pilihan raya pada 2014. Kemudian juga pernah menjadi ahli Parlimen Pembangkang semasa selepas terjatuhnya atau selepas Pakatan Harapan digulingkan, dan juga semasa pentadbiran Ismail Sabri. Bagaimana Maria bermuhasabah ataupun merenung cabaran-cabaran untuk menukar grassroots aktivisme gerakan-gerakan akar umbi kepada satu structural reform di puncak kekuasaan, iaitu di Parlimen. Adakah ketika Parlimen ataupun mara semasa dalam kerajaan telah membuka satu ruang, satu unforeseen challenge antara aspirasi bersih dan juga realiti untuk mentadbir dan melaksanakan sesuatu polisi. Baik, Maria. Itu panjang Okey.
Saya rasa ya, buat masa kita tukar kerajaan pada tahun 2018, I think we were really thinking that reform is coming. Okay? Dan buat masa itu adalah untuk saya sebagai mantan ahli parlimen, that was my most difficult time for the 5 years. Pada tahun 2018 sampai ke mungkin 2000 sebelum kerajaan jatuh, ada ruang untuk kita membawa perpindahan kepada undang-undang dan juga membawa perubahan untuk dasar-dasar. So for misalnya of course awal Liu Wulipiong, kalau anda masih ingat Menteri Undang-Undang, he was the one who actually had a whole senarai undang-undang yang dia hendak memindah. There were about 30 and of course he had consultation with the MPs and all that. We added 36 pindaan yang dia hendak buat, and he also through discussion with MPs, various MPs like a few of us, we actually have a timeline on when all these pindaan akan berlaku. But of course the change in government actually disrupted a lot, and not once but three times or whatever. And I think that actually hinders the reform process that we want to do, because every time we had to reconnect again, and it was not easy. Bila kita kerajaan jatuh, we couldn't even go back into the parliament for a while. So there were this halangan, dan lepas tu COVID masuk. Dan ini adalah satu cabaran kepada kita semua. But whatever it is, I think that selain daripada kita hendak mereformasikan institusi or what you call structural reform, yang penting ialah implementation. From my experience in terms of institutional reform, if we do not have, kalau kerajaan tidak ada plan untuk macam mana mereka akan mengimplementasikan undang-undang dan dasar-dasar, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Dan contohnya macam bila kita, ini adalah pengalaman saya yang mana kita ada kita draft, the Women's Movement drafted the Domestic Violence Act, dan kita dapat diluluskan dalam parlimen, but there were no regulation, no way to implement the act. We had to demonstrate in order for the act to be implemented. So institutional reform, fine and good, tapi kita mesti ada plan, dan mesti cadangkan kepada kerajaan bagaimana plan ini boleh dijalankan, bagaimana akta itu boleh digunakan oleh polis dan sebagainya. That's one. Two is that kerana kerajaan sendiri, I feel that there is very little political will to bring in the reforms, and other menteri yang kata jangan tekan kerajaan. For me, and this was said by Azalina, don't you dare tell us kita tak boleh tekan kerajaan. Don't you dare. Kerana ini adalah tanggungjawab, ini adalah komitmen daripada rakyat dan juga civil society untuk tekan kerajaan kalau you tak buat kerja. You can give me 3,000, 10,000 reforms that you want to do, Tapi kalau tak ada plan, tak ada timeline, you are not doing your job. I'm so sorry. Okay, and that is what I want to see. Yeah, satu timeline, satu work plan yang mana from low hanging fruit sampai ke long term reforms or changes. You tell us what are your plan. Tapi sampai sekarang kita dah tukar kerajaan beberapa kali, tak ada plan, tak ada consultation yang kita boleh bagi input bagaimana undang-undang dan dasar-dasar boleh dilaksanakan. So I think that my expectation is that this government, kerana ini adalah berasal daripada Pakatan Harapan, this government has a duty to actually give us a clear plan. Where are you heading in this country? Where are you heading in terms of institutional reform? Where are you heading in terms of all the reforms that were promised to us before 2018? That is what I will hold the government to. And as MPs, I think that, they need to be much more active in Parliament. There are too many photos about the Parliament being empty. I can understand why. To a large extent, the select committee meetings happen at the same time as during Parliament. In other countries, they have allocated different times. And these are kind of reforms that I would like to see happening. How we organize select committee meetings and Parliament session. Of course, the whole list that Bersih has actually put up, those are the reforms that we have to hold this government to. Dan saya rasa ini adalah tekanan daripada kita. Ya. Dan mereka kalau tak boleh buat kerja mereka, don't stand for election the next round. Thank you.
Di akhir. Terima kasih Maria di atas perkongsian tersebut, iaitu ada beberapa poin yang sangat penting. Yang pertama adalah kerajaan perlu ada timeline. Tapi kadang-kadang kerajaan ada timeline, kan? Cuma timeline kita tak tahu, kan? Kita tak tahu. Dan kalau kita tahu pun dia terlalu lama lah. Baik, seterusnya untuk soalan kepada saudara Thomas ya. Thomas telah memimpin gerakan Bersih semasa proses transisi demokrasi ini, iaitu selepas kemenangan Pakatan Harapan sehinggalah PRU15, iaitu bermulanya kerajaan yang baru. Melihat semula, malam ini kita mungkin banyak refleksi untuk kita melihat ke depan. Melihat semula, adakah Thomas merasakan bahawa sekarang ini pada permainan politik itu semakin rata? Adakah dia level playing field now? Adakah ini hanya sekadar kosmetik? Kosmetik, kenyataan yang katanya tak sama adil itu, adakah itu hanya sekadar kosmetik? Kerana sistem kita masih lagi ada banyak gerrymandering masih tidak ditangani, kan? Isu politik wang, isu institutional bias, ataupun ini hanya sekadar persepsi picisan bahawa sebenarnya benda tak terjadi. Baik Thomas, saya persilakan.
Terima kasih. Ya, bagi saya kalau reformasi tidak dijadikan undang, ia bukan reformasi. So unless reforms are legislated into law, it is not reform, it's just cosmetic administrative change. And we have seen some of those since 2018, di mana kita dalam masa tu Tun Mahathir ada buat perubahan dari segi parlimen. In terms of parliamentary reform, we saw the formation of, for the first time, parliamentary special select committees, 10 of them at that time. They were not fully functioning, but at least they were formed, and members of parliament were able to come together to sit in select committees to look at different issues. He also put in the Electoral Reform Committee and appointed Sri Rashid, who then reached out to Bersih and invited Bersih, a few of us, to be part of the Electoral Reform Committee to look at a total overhaul of the electoral system. It was a 2-year mandate, and we basically were mandated by the Prime Minister's department at that time to go around the country to talk to all stakeholders about the area of reforms that need to be done. And at the end of it, we came out with the Electoral Reform Committee report, but it was Official Secret Act. It was sealed till today and not allowed to be published. We don't see any reason why that should not be published. You know, if you want to talk about low-hanging fruit, you can't get lower than a report on electoral reform. We are not talking about national security here. But we worked on that report for 2 years, and till today, even under the Madani government, that is still an official report. So to me, is there a commitment to real reform? I think the score tells us that the commitment is very shallow. But we still have to continue to push for that reform. That's why engagement like this, report card like this is so important, because it's a constant reminder to the government of the day that we are still watching you. We are still watching you. Now, I think after 2018, I think one of the challenges that we have in putting pressure on the government is really, are we able to call the hundreds of thousands of people that came up to come out again to push and put pressure on the government? Well, that is a question that is still to be answered, because since 2016, we have not called for a Bersih rally till today. Now, what we learned then was that there are other levers that we can use to basically bring about change. And one of the things that we did in the Bersih committee was, first of all, to reach out to the opposition, the new opposition then, the UMNO, the MCA, the PAS, and all this, and let them know that we are non-partisan. We are here to basically try to level the playing field, because till today the playing field is not level. So we reach out to them, and in doing so, we basically also are looking for allies. One of the ways, not just Bersih, but any CSO, NGO today, in order for our work to make an impact, is to identify allies in all areas. One area will be political allies, politicians in all parties who share reform aspirations, and they are there. They are there. We identified some in UMNO. Azalina was a prime example. You know, when she was in opposition as a backbench, she was open to some of the reforms that we proposed, like the anti-hopping law, recall election, and basically we work with people like her, and also within Pakistan itself, there are those who are allies, identifying allies and work with them. The other big allies that we did in order to push for reform was to work closely with the media. You know, the media is such an important pillar in the democracy. You know, we want to defend them, we want to stand by them, and not allow them to be undermined, silenced in any way, because they are the voices that can carry the voices of the rakyat and the CSO. So what we did was in those years after 2018 was to basically talk to the media and say, this is our dream of Malaysia. This is what we want to see in Malaysia. And then let's work together. And many of them say, yes, we share that dream. So they became basically the CSO's loud hailer, you know. Yeah, they become the loud hailer. So working with allies in all sectors, other CSO, even the business sector, civil servants, we can still bring about change. And so this is, I think, a crucial moment that we need to continue to push, and it is not the time to give up, but it is a time to continue marching forward. Thank you.
Baik, terima kasih saudara Faisal. Seterusnya saya untuk mempersilakan saudara Faisal. Saya cakapkan soalan ini mungkin akan ditanya oleh audiens sebentar lagi. Cuma saya tanya awal kepada beliau. Faisal sebagai pengurusi Bersih sekarang, yang juga Bersih dalam keadaan di mana kita mempunyai rakan-rakan di dalam kerajaan, dan juga kita juga sedang membina juga networking bersama dengan ahli perbankan. Namun ada yang berpendapat bahawa dekatnya kerajaan, dilihat dekatnya kerajaan bersama dengan Bersih telah menyebabkan Bersih menjadi sedikit lembut dan juga dah tak lagi kritikal terhadap kerajaan sebagaimana terdahulu. Bagaimana Faisal merespon kepada persepsi ini? Adakah kita ready? Staff tanya kepada pengurusi ya. Adakah kita ready untuk mendesak dengan lebih keras, walaupun ianya akan bertentangan dengan Kerajaan Perpaduan? Saya tanya dulu sebelum orang lain tanya. Baik, terima kasih. Teruskan Faisal.
Baik, terima kasih. Baik, terima kasih Ashraf. Saya ingat, I think my question is clear. For Bersih, whoever in power, Bersih always remain as critical to the government, especially during about kerajaan. Apa pun di kerajaan, even during Pakatan Harapan Tun M 1.0, Bersih has always been critical in terms of implementing reform agenda. But of course, during that time, 1 year period of government Tun Mahathir, of course we give more time, and at least we can see certain progress as we have discussed this now. Tapi kita still remain as critical sebab Bersih bagi kita, kalau bukan Bersih, kalau bukan CSO, bukan Bersih sajalah. Kalau bukan CSO, siapa lagi yang akan menggerakkan suara rakyat? Dan soalan ditanya kan, kita ada kawan-kawan dalam kerajaan. I don't think kawan-kawan kita dalam kerajaan akan menegur kita kalau kita tegur kerajaan. So dia tanya mandi kat sini kan. Sepanjang waktu saya bagi grade F, saya tak pernah dapat panggilan dari mandi. Marah, kenapa bagi F kat kerajaan? Jadi pokoknya ialah kita berlepas dada. Kita, bila kita issue statement atau bila kita kritikal kepada kerajaan, kita ada basis kita. Bukan sebab kita anti, tapi basis kita ialah kita nak kepada rakyat apa yang terbaik untuk rakyat dari segi reform agenda. Dan sebenarnya saya yakin kalau kita tengok semua yang jadi menteri daripada Amanah, PKR dan DAP, semua tanya mereka, pernah tak mereka pakai baju bersih? Saya yakin semua pernah pakai baju bersih. Kita ada kawan kita Rozal, boleh bangun tak? Ini orang mati. Baju yang saya bagi kita tak akan jumpa lah baju ni. Baju yang lusuh ya. Jadi ini contoh sejarah gerakan rakyat yang mana saya fikir orang-orang parti semua terlibat. Tapi dia tidak bermaksud kita tidak boleh kritik kepada parti. Sebab apa yang kita perjuangkan ialah kita nak pastikan. Sebab bagi kita mudah. Kita nak, kalau orang kata Bersih nak pilih jadi kerajaan. Kalau betul pun Bersih nak pilih jadi kerajaan, tumbangkan Najib atas alasan-alasan yang kukuh untuk reformasi. Bukannya, you let finish government and then cuci tangan habis. Bukan. For reason. Kita berkempen contohnya waktu dulu 2018 jatuhkan Najib sebab ada alasan-alasan. Bukan semata-mata kita anti pada UMNO, bukan kita anti pada Badan Nasional, tapi kita anti pada sistem. Kita nakkan perubahan. Jadi itu yang menjelaskan kita. Dan saya setuju juga apa yang disebut juga tadi Maria dan juga Thomas. Cuma tinggal lagi kita kena faham hari ini kita berada dalam situasi yang terlalu kompleks. Hari ini saya kan dalam interview orang luar impress dengan Bersih. How can you mobilize people talk about electoral reform tapi boleh mobilize sampai Bersih boleh 1,500 ratusan ribu. Kita kena ingat sebelum 2018 rakyat begitu muak dengan parti pemerintah. Kalau orang kata corruption, manipulation pun orang boleh percaya sebab Badan Nasional berada 60 tahun. Memang something fishy lah. And then after that berlakunya Sheraton move, tukar Perdana Menteri banyak kali, akhirnya bagi orang berlakunya politik ketik. Wah, susah lah. And then plus COVID lah. So, saya nak sebut di sini bila soalan ditanya tentang kita nak lebih rantang. This is what we try to do. We go to the grassroots. It is very important to fire our base. Alhamdulillah, with the help of our secret team, kita pergi road to reform roadshow. Mungkin istilah orang kata roadshow ni roadshow kecil. Itu kita tak kisah. Tapi bagi kita turun ke ground, kita sila reform kepada masyarakat yang berada di outside of Klang ini. Kita cuba turun ke campus, kita train, kita rekrut yang aktivis. Sebab kalau tak, Bersih akan jadi bahan sejarah. Dan apa bentuk reform ataupun bentuk demokrasi yang kita nak buat kalau kita tidak turun ke ground. Dan yang paling penting kita nak relate reform dengan ataupun contextualize reform dengan agenda-agenda tempatan lokal. So ini adalah perkara-perkara yang penting kita cuba build momentum. Kalau tidak, kalau kita hanya semata-mata bergerak di Lembah Kelang tanpa turun ke luar, tanpa bergerak lebih aktif, berpartisipasi dan menggerakkan banyak forum-forum after COVID, kita akan dilihat sebagai gerakan yang hanya menjadi bahan kenangan sejarah. Dan saya ingat dengan harapan dengan kawan-kawan, with the help of all people yang datang, kita try, kita cuba yang terbaik walaupun tidak perfect. We organize program Bersih, kita buat last Friday party dialogue. We can see the progress, I mean in terms of participation of the people, termasuk dalam forum malam ni. Sebab kita cuba maintain the momentum. Sebab orang selalu kata after COVID orang suka online. Whatever forum datang 5 orang. Tapi kita try, we do our best nak keep up this momentum. Kalau kita buat isu-isu buat program, kita cuba support supaya suara rakyat itu semakin tinggi, semakin kuat dan didengar oleh kerajaan.
Baik, terima kasih Saudara Faisal. Poin yang penting iaitu Bersih masih lagi sedang kita cuba mengembalikan semula, iaitu dengan membina semula asas kita sebagai gerakan yang berakar umbi. Lepas tu kita masih lagi turun ke negeri-negeri untuk menyebarluaskan isu-isu reformasi, polisi-polisi yang kita nak. Dan kita nak rakyat bersama Bersih untuk mendesak kerajaan pada hari ini supaya melakukan reformasi yang tidak lagi bertangguh-tangguh sehingga PRU yang akan datang. Baik, seterusnya saya membuka soalan kepada rakan-rakan yang berada di sini. Mungkin pertamanya saya boleh buka soalan mungkin kepada rakan-rakan media kalau ada persoalan seputar laporan Perdana Tengah Penggal Kerajaan Perpaduan dan juga daripada apa yang disebutkan oleh panel tadi. Kalau ada rakan media. Kalau tidak kita boleh terus. Oh, ada. Salam. Sana. Saya nampak di sini, minta maaf.
Soalan ini. More towards the methodology itself, because look at the previous to Wakina. You will consider another element, like for example, introducing regressive laws and amendments to be part of the methodology, because it is not covered. It's only covered by promises fulfilled. Like for example, introducing social media licensing, introducing Online Safety Act, in an upcoming amending PDPA law, and also the citizenship amendment package. So this can be seen as regressive. Will this be considered as another element of reviewing? So instead of E, it becomes F again. So these are the three things that may actually affect the assessment too, because right now we don't see that element is included. So what do you think?
Kita kumpul soalan dulu ya sebelum ke Kohim. Baik, ada yang seterusnya saudara sebelah kanan.
Toby, echoing from the question asked before regarding the regressive assessment law. Of course, we look at the small bills being proposed as regressive. Is a strict still an option for us to voice out our concerns to all the members?
Okay, satu lagi. One more question. Okay,
but I don't want my photos to be taken.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm Isaac. I'm from. I founded initiative to promote tolerance and prevent violence, or initiate Damai. So I appreciate, especially Maria, for bringing up Sosma and all that. I think it's not really a question, but it's really a sharing where we work on security issues. And KTN just published a national action plan on preventing and countering violent extremism last July, and no response so far from civil society. And KTN only published the executive summary, not the full version of it yet. So, but I was involved in the consultation and so on. I think if you look at the version and the discussions now, there are signs that there will be a revival of ISA. There is a discussion on that. So the writing, the discussions point towards that direction. Singapore has it. Why cannot we have it to curtail the rights of actors? But I think another one is the focus of the security laws on deviant groups. So these deviant religious groups, they are not security threats. They should be dealt under Sharia law. Not if we consider them as a dangerous law, but then they are being discussed under National Action Plan under form of a security lens. So that's quite a big issue that I want to highlight since there's a good audience here.
Baik.
Yes.
Okay, terima kasih Aizat.
Can I add into what he said? Just a simple one.
30 saat juga.
My name is Kim. Sorry. You said that you have events coming up in Bersih here. So on the 30th of November.
Bukan event Bersih itu sebenarnya. Ya, ini ada event PSM.
Parti
Sosialis Malaysia.
Parti Sosialis.
Jangan keliru. Okay.
Jangan keliru. But because it's distributed here, so assuming I'm a layman here, so you say that Madani untuk siapa? You see, there's a question. So then you have a Malam Solidarity. And what does it tell us? Because you are going to show tayangan film Palestine. And it's such a hot topic in the whole world, right? And Malaysia been very nice at our PMX that we can import, refugees, this kind of thing.
Okay, boleh ke?
So this is one thing I'm saying. So what does it tell the public here? You see or not? So for a layman, what is this? Then they will bring me to the next question to say that in the Ministry of Education lately, right, they have invited the Taliban Afghanistan dialogue. So what are we going to learn from the Taliban when their women are not even allowed for education? So what is the signal or the message to the public in Malaysia?
Soalan kepada panelis ke atau macam mana?
So the government.
So tanya soalan hari kepada panelis.
So if we have this message imprinted, so the people are also confused. So are we into that direction? Are we moving forward or are we moving backward?
Okay, baik.
So that's what
Okay, terima kasih Puan.
that is really critical to public layman like me.
Okay, baik, terima kasih.
Thank you.
Okay, mungkin Puan boleh jawab soalan daripada saudara. Saya ambil 3 soalan tadi dulu. Kemudian kita akan dijawab oleh panelis dan juga pembentang pada hari ini. Kau jawab.
Okay, so thanks Norman from Nikkei Asia for asking the question. Whether we could consider a category where we actually penalize them for introducing regressive law. I think that's a good suggestion. We definitely can incorporate that. And I think, you know, in the last year's iteration, there were like 4 categories. So in this year, we're trying to simplify it lah. So there's always there's always this trade-off between you nak simplification yang people senang nak faham, rather than, you know, having 4 or 5 categories, then we score on those 4 or 5. Partially fulfill regressive elements. So we definitely take your point. Social media licensing, online safety act also, I think it's something very new. We haven't seen it play out yet. So one of the factors that I think we internally, the team discussed, is a collective decision. It has to be based on real world developments, empirical evidence. We can't be hypothetical about whether, you know, has someone been arrested for it and stuff like that lah. So it's still new, the online safety and social media licensing. Maybe next year we will see something if a news portal got closed down, which by the way, medium.com, if you guys remember the blogging site, it got closed down by Najib back then. Entire website was closed down. So I think we do see a precedence there, and that's dangerous. and we are open for any feedback lah. If you got any. You know, it's not perfect, like we are saying. We are experimenting with a new methodology. So if you have recommendation, we are still open for feedback. It's still a work in progress. Okay, since I had a mic, I boleh respond sikit lah. Boleh. So banyak panelists have very interesting ni, and I think the gentleman also asked, is street is still an option? And someone was saying about Bersih haven't organized protests, major protests since year. But do you know this year alone, Bersih have organized a few smaller scale ones? Do you know we have one in Masjid Jamet protesting DNAA against Shahid? Do you know we also have a small rally outside of Parliament this year? So what I'm trying to say is the streets remain an option to the gentleman that is asking. But it cannot be the only thing we do now. And I think the same narrative goes for this report. The standard has to be higher. It's not enough for civil society to just go on the street, to just scold the government for not doing enough. We have to come up with solid, concrete alternative and really work hard behind the scenes to lobby for it. It's not easy. It's sometimes the work is behind closed doors. So for example, Faisal and myself, we are in the APPG, Office of Political Financing. We do a lot of work behind the scene. Tapi tak semua benda boleh cakap keluar. Otherwise, how would the people trust us to negotiate in good faith with the minister and so on? So that's one aspect. Previously, Bersih, I think Chin Wan, Thomas, and again, working with the law minister back then, now is Tun Wan Junaidi, happily in his Istana in Sarawak, anti-hopping law. And we managed to get that done, anti-hopping law. So can you imagine anti-hopping law, 2022 HAM Parliament, kalau tak ada anti-hopping law, habis aku rasa 1 bulan belajar kat form. Everyone will be assigning SDs one day after another. Can we claim credit for it? We can. But normally, you can't always, so politicians sometimes take the spotlight where it's a collective work. I hope that answered the question. Okay, can I also share one quick thing about a debate that we actually have internally among the Bersih team about the question of Najib. And I have to be very careful here. We had a long debate about where should we place Najib against Anwar. Okay, just now the slides you saw, right? It's very simple kan, macam table, who number 1, who number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. I would seriously recommend you to scan this QR code. It's a 4,000 word report, it's very detailed, and it explains why we rank them as such. Najib's question is difficult. Now, unity government, people say it's only 2 years, relax, you are being too impatient. But let me tell you what Najib has done in his first 2 years, 2009 to 2011. He abolished ISA, Internal Security Act, something that has been going around for decades. People like Syed Hussein Ali and I believe Maria's husband also. A lot of people were arrested under ISA where you can be detained without trial. No even due process. He tried to abolish the Sedition Act. He announced on TV. Of course, he later U-turned. He introduced the Peaceful Assembly Act. He initiated the Peaceful Assembly Act. It was passed in 2012, but the process was started earlier. So it can be done. First 2 years, reforms can be done. And if you compare Najib first term alone, he should be ranked higher than Anwar. But why did we rank him top bottom? Collectively, we agree he has to be ranked top bottom of the list because of what he did subsequently to undermine key institutions. If you see elsewhere in Myanmar, and you see Thailand, where the court dissolved the main political party that won the most votes in the election, when you undermine key institutions, that's when democracy goes to the ground. Especially like in Hitler and everything. So, if the people in unity government today are unhappy that we are placing UG quite low, then show us the reform. Or show us the money, right? Show us the reform. Don't tell us about the reform. Show us the reform.
Baik, terima kasih saudara. Ada yang lain mau merespon?
Can I just respond? I think that there is always this question of why Bersih doesn't go to the streets. It's not a matter of whether we go or not. It is whether the strategic timing is there or not. So let us not discard the possibility of going to the street. But do we need to mobilize like how we mobilize? I don't think that is a question to be asked now. Because the sentiment is rather low. Civil society is still trying to organize themselves and working sometimes in silos. I'm sorry to say that. But I think that, when we actually went to the streets, it was the strategic time. We had issues and people were angry. Now people are not so angry. But then, yes, we do want reform. We are not saying that we don't want reform. We can never say that we don't want reform. But also, we also want to say that there is also a strategic timing that we give to the government. If you don't give us the reform, then the rakyat will determine the action. It wouldn't be determined by me or any of the people in Bersih. It will be determined by the people. It is the people who decided to turn Bersih from an NGO into a movement. It is the people who went to the streets and then they went to the ballot box also to vote out the government, not us. So we can't claim that credit, but the people claim the credit. That is why we have to always remember that our base is still the people. It is the people who will decide for us whether we go to the streets, whether we do institutional reform, whether we want to be critical about the UG government or not. It's the people. And that's why I really encourage more voices from the public. We have to say what we want. We cannot keep quiet. When we see, our country is being split, even now, more badly than ever, on the issue of race and religion, we don't say anything. And if we say, we will be put into jail. And that's why people don't say anything. But it didn't stop us when we were having our rallies. So I think that, if we're not happy about things, we have to say. It is our duty. Sebagai warga negara ini, itu adalah tanggungjawab kita. Kita yang akan mencipta direction of this country. It wouldn't be individual or any icons, or any government who is going to determine the direction of this country. If we think that, the UG is going to fulfill all the reforms, well, we have seen their performance. Of course, we are not giving up. We are going to still pressure them, but we also need to listen to what the people are saying and
Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. Thomas ada.
Saya respon satu sebagai saya sebab berkongsi tentang ada bunyi-bunyi dari KTN kita tak pasti, tapi terima kasih sebab berkongsi dengan kita semua tentang ada info bahawa usaha-usaha mungkin cuba untuk kembali ke ISC. Jadi dah tulis sini bagi Bersih, Forest, ISC is our deadline. Kalau zaman Datuk Seri Najib, ISC dimasukkan, kenapa tiba-tiba hari ni kita nak bawa oleh ISC? Dalam keadaan kita masih lagi ada sosma, masih ada portal, masih ada terlalu banyak repressive law. Kenapa tiba-tiba ada elemen-elemen dalam KTN nak bawa ISC? Jadi saya nak sebut ni, Forest, ISC is our deadline. Kita akan bantah kalau ada usaha untuk bawa ISC kepada dalam undang-undang negara.
Ya. Mungkin satu poin saya nak add. Sekarang saya rasa lebih turun dari zaman BN dari segi perbankan. At least pada masa tu, kalau ada sebarang attack on the media or on civil society, you can be sure the opposition then will make a lot of noise, you know, and raising concerns. But today, when we see the media being curbed, you know, corruption cases being like trying to be covered up, and all these things happening, we don't hear much from the opposition. So that's why I really am glad that Bersih is having a section on reporting on the performance of the opposition. We need to have a good opposition to make noise. It is not just upon the shoulders of NGOs and civil society to make the noise, but the rakyat, including the opposition, need to make the noise over issues of concerns.
Terima kasih, Thomas. Okay, saya buka mungkin lagi 2 soalan lagi. Saya sebab ada depan 1 dan 2 yang paling depan. Cuma satu mungkin ada soalan daripada wanita. Tidak ada. Baik, saya. Okay. Please make it short, sir.
How short?
Yeah. 20 saat.
Thank you, moderator. You know, you gave an excellent report card on the Manali government, and by all accounts, it failed miserably. And your topic of heavy chief change is obviously very redundant. So my question to the panel here, I mean, you know, we are all expressing our woes or frustrations or discontentment. Today we are talking about the suppression of media, ironically enough, by the very same people that voted in. It's so embarrassing. I voted for Pakistan all the while. I am so supportive of Pakistan. With huge expectations from Pakistan. Today they have miserably let us down. And some of you are saying, give them time, fair enough. But time is of the essence now, because elections are within the next 2 to 3 years. We don't have much time left. We want the Manali government to survive, to live. But the way they are going, I can tell you, I may not even want to vote for them again. Because they have betrayed us. All the reforms that they promised have come to zilch. So I'm just expressing my frustrations here. So I think, I don't know what the panel think about this, but I do think, I mean, I applaud your record book, but like you said, your record book shows completely this government has miserably failed to deliver on all the reforms that they promised. So I don't see any future at this point in time for this present government. Thank you.
Terima kasih. Satu lagi soalan daripada saudara kita di depan. Jadi soalannya tadi gentleman tadi cakap, adakah kerajaan gagal ya, begitu ya naratifnya. Baik, saya
my soalan is mostly to learn more about this.
tadi macam dia cakap Najib dia buat amendment untuk perlembagaan untuk dia dah buat amendment untuk reform within the first 3 years. What is the actual blocking the Madani government from actually macam saying just going to parliament, contohnya kalau they have the political will going to parliament say, okay, from today we're going to have term limits. What is it that macam is actually blocking? Just to understand the situation.
Okay. Ada yang nak jawab? Apa yang menjadi halangan mungkin kepada kerajaan? Dan kita hari ini kita mengkritik kerajaan sebab lambat kan? Ya. Sebab kita berdua sana. Ya, mungkin boleh merespon kepada Thomas.
Ya.
Thomas, mungkin kau boleh respon kepada apa yang disebut tadi.
Macam komen lah.
Okay. Sebab dia mau tanya tadi juga.
Yeah. So, what is the holding back? Well, let's start with the excuses first. This is a unity government. We don't have majority. But to us, it's an excuse because a lot of the reforms that we talk about, even BN put it on their manifesto as well. And there is no proof that the other parties, GPS or GRS, are in opposition to any of the reforms that we listed. No proof of that. So to me, it's just an excuse. There is also talk that there are resistance from the civil servants. Civil servants. And civil service proved to be quite a big barrier for the government and ministers to overcome. But again, I think that's what governments are for. They are given the mandate through elections to basically carry out what they have promised. And they have to basically find ways. And we're not talking about 100% delivered in the first year or second year, but we're talking about a steady stream of commitments and delivering of reforms. But let me then move on to what I think is really the real reason why reforms is not happening. The structure of this, our law right now, to understand it, to put it very simply, we are, the Prime Minister's office, the position of Prime Minister, is a de facto dictatorship by law. Because as a Prime Minister, you have power over Parliament. The Parliament has been neutered for 60 years. And then it began to be given some sort of space, committees. But till today, this Prime Minister still suffocate the Parliament by holding back funding. Now, Faizal talked about Parliamentary Services Act. What is that? In short, it is a budget for Parliament to be independent, to function with resources, both in staffing and in money, and for the committees. Till today, the Prime Minister is still holding back / Finance Minister, from Parliament. The committees, I heard YB Wong Chen in Parliament the other day, and my heart aches. As a chairman of a select committee on international relations, he received foreign dignitaries, foreign parliamentarians come to visit him in Parliament. They all come with beautiful gifts from their country to present to him. He got no money, no budget to return anything. He quickly asked his staff, go to the Parliament store and buy a pin, like what? Pin, and give to. And when he wants to visit them, there's no budget. I mean, is this the way we should treat our Parliament, the Dewan Rakyat? And this is the truth. So the concentration of power in the hand of the Prime Minister is to such an extent that whoever sits on it is very, very reluctant to let go. He has control over the MACC. He has control over the AG. He has control over even the judiciary, you know, through the Judicial Appointment Commission. He has majority appointment rights to who select judges. And all these things are very tempting for anyone who sits in that position. So what can we do? You know, what can we do? The Rakyat actually has one thing to our advantage, and that's election. And like I said earlier, whoever is government today is actually very, very sensitive to the Rakyat. You know, the voters. That's the one group they dare not offend. If it's exposed to them, if they are exposed. So I think we have to continue to basically call out, you know, what we want to do in reform is actually flatten, you know, the power should be shared. The parliament has to be independent as a check and balance. The judiciary really has to be independent and defend the people. You know. And all these are not in place right now. And I'm afraid PMX just enjoying that too much. That's the real reason, I think.
Okay. Terima kasih Thomas. Marian atau Faisal? Okay. Marian.
Oh.
Faisal. Faisal ada? Ada.
Just to respond to you, although I know it's a comment, I wouldn't give up. Yeah. I wouldn't give up at this present moment, and neither do I want to depend on the present government either. Because I think that there's a lot more to do, and Rakyat has to raise our voice. If we don't, we are going to we become as part and parcel of not doing anything, and part and parcel of not making any change. If we say that, you know, there's nothing we can do, then what happened to all the rallies that we went through? So I think that, you know, at the present moment, the political will is very low. And it's not just about the Prime Minister, yeah. I think that the ministers are either lost in space or that, you know, there is no kind of like anything that stands out in terms of them making effort to bring the reform. One is particularly in most of the aspects, yeah, and education. We know that, you know, the education system needs to change, yeah, in order that we bring in this whole issue of what we understand about opening up space, being inclusive and things like that. It starts with the education. To the level of even at the parliament. I know some of you all have a lot of hope that we will get the Political Financing Act, the PSA and all that. To be honest, I think that there's a lot of resistance. It was supposed to happen this year, the PSA, the political finance. Now it's next year and probably never. Yeah. But what do? We can't depend on them to bring the reform to us. We have to actually tell them that these are the reforms that we want, and it has to happen. It has to happen, and what actually makes politicians listen is really your votes. Yeah, the votes is important, but let's not wait until the ballot box come along. But we have to start now to make the change. We have to keep on trying, and that is part of democracy for me.
Terima kasih. Mungkin ada sedikit sama dengan poin Faisal. Faisal, poin.
Oh, I just want to quickly respond to what ini gentleman just saying kan. I think this gentleman is
a representation of what we have seen in KKB by-election and so on. In KKB by-election, there's a lower turnout, and specifically, his demographics is the lower turnout. And I think for people in government, this is a sign that people may not vote for PM, let's say, for your former supporter, but they could just choose to, like Uncle said, I don't want to vote anymore, I'll just stay at home. The lower voter turnout, I think, is an issue. And don't take your base for granted. Do the reform necessary. But also, Uncle, like Maria said also, don't give up in the sense of, I want to say democracy is not tied to your support for or against a particular political party. Democracy is an ecosystem. For example, we always talk about civil society, activists lah, politicians lah, but there's also another very important key group of people in a democracy. And who's that? It's people with the pens and keyboards and cameras here, which is the journalists. Malaysiakini, for 25 years, have been reporting very important news, and they just face restructuring. It's a public news, I think it's okay to share. Right? About 10 journalists lost their job. I think this is not something healthy for democracy, and if you feel disappointed with a political party, okay, why not subscribe and support a certain independent media? That's what we can do as citizens to support democracy. Okay, about the other question about why mungkin tak nak buat reform kan? Okay, I don't want to comment about other areas, but one very important area for Bersih is delineation, redrawing of electoral boundaries. And what we have heard is that the government might be reluctant to press this button is because they are worried it could be snowball into an anti-ISET thing. Right? It can be, it can trigger, it can be perceived. Any delineation might be spin into a challenge on Malay political power and so on. Now, we want to say to the government, it's not an either-or situation. It's, I do it, I face severe political backlash. If I don't do it, better I just don't touch it at all. Because there's severe malapportionment. You were with us in the streets back then, challenging malapportionment gerrymandering. You know what's wrong. We don't have to explain it to you. The key, as put out in our report recommendation, is that you've got to have bipartisan fingerprints, right? Let's say on sensitive major reform issues, for example, delineation, you've got to have bipartisan fingerprints so that no one party can be blamed for it. And we are talking about things like petrol subsidy. I think every prime minister knows it must be done. Law 95 and Law 97 and so on. But no one has the guts to do it because they know it will backfire politically. So why not, for the good of the nation, in your MOU, negotiate for these major reforms. Have bipartisan fingerprints, have bipartisan committees to execute it, whether it's delineation or petrol subsidy reforms.
Wait. Sorry sir, we are wrapping up this up because kita dah nak tamat untuk acara malam ini.
Talk to people, you don't listen to people.
No, bukan kita dah bagi peluang kepada semua. Kita bersih lebih kurang dah hampir 2 jam setengah ya. Saya persilakan untuk rakan panelis untuk buat sebelum akhir lah. Sebelum kita ada satu acara lagi kat sini. Baik. Aisyah, mungkin boleh menambahkan.
Baik, terima kasih Syaf, Maria dan juga Thomas just concluding remark lah. I think apa yang kita sebut tadi, perkara yang paling penting ialah untuk kita rakyat, kita menggerakkan lagi kesedaran. Dan juga saya fikir hari ini bukan lagi zaman untuk kita work in silo. Maksudnya perlu kita lebih collaboration, kita lebih cari persamaan daripada mencari perbezaan. Dan saya ingat seperti yang semua sebut, even tadi Maria pun sebut tentang cabaran-cabaran kini after COVID, orang bukan marah sangat jadi persoalannya ialah macam mana kita nak keep up the momentum. Dan yang paling penting bila kita sebut tentang reform, ini harapan besar kita dalam konteks anak muda mungkin nak sebut, kita ada juga anak muda kat sini. Bagi kita perlu kita sentiasa memikirkan siapa atau akan datang. Saya sendiri pun bukan anak muda sangat, saya pun dah masuk 40. Tapi harus kita fikir siapa yang akan mewarisi perjuangan Bersih, mewarisi perjuangan reform, mewarisi perjuangan akan datang. Dan saya ingat ini penting untuk kita sampaikan mesej kepada kawan-kawan kita, anak-anak muda kita, mungkin pelajar kita, mahasiswa, untuk mereka cakna dengan isu-isu yang berlaku. Jadi itu saja. Saya terima kasih. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Ya,
I want to end with something basically hopeful. I think this is a report card, and the score is not great, and I think we all can see the concerns. But I think one thing that we need to always do is not to lose hope. Don't lose hope. I'm so conscious of that fact in all these years that we have been struggling, for a better nation. There were moments where it was so depressing. Everything is like not working and falling apart. But I'm also very aware that as a civil society leader, I cannot lose hope. I cannot tell people there's no hope, because I believe there's hope, and it is in our hand, basically, to find that and to tell people that, look, this is our country. It is up to us to reclaim it. It is up to us to make it better. And I'm so glad that there are so many younger generations, people here. You are indeed the future. You are indeed the hope that we have. And I think we stand together with you in pushing for a better Malaysia. We have come a very long way, but we still have a long way to go. But I believe that the ship has turned around, and there is a hope for a better future.
I just want to share something that just happened maybe a few days ago. Because the residents in Petaling Jaya, particularly those in Bukit Kasing, have actually been very critical, of the kind of development that's happening in Petaling Jaya. But recently, they have actually band together and form a coalition of a residents association to actually monitor the development. They didn't give up. So, although they are still very angry with what is happening with PJ the Link, I'm not sure if you all know the issue. They are still very angry, but they also want to do something that is concrete and substantive, and something that they can actually contribute back to Petaling Jaya. So, of course, we have our ups and downs in this country. Democracy is always like that. But if people in this at the local level still got the energy to come back, to form a coalition, they don't know anything about structural plan, the Urban Renewal Act, and things like that, but they want to do something. So I see this as a spark, which you all can also start that spark. And we have to start that spark, not just wait until PRU coming. We have to start the spark now. Let us start again if you want to see it that way. But let us start something and voice out. Most important is we need to listen to voices. That actually will spark off things, and things will happen. So thank you very much for all your support for Bersih. Thank you, and all the people who actually made Bersih happen. Particularly, I will say the Secretariat, I'm really quite proud with Ashraf and a few who have actually supported us so well. Thank you.
Terima kasih. Dengan itu kita menutup forum pada malam ini. Saya tutup dengan satu puisi. Boleh tak? Puisinya puisi oleh satu penyanyi puisi di Indonesia, sajak kepada Bung Dadi. Bung Dadi adalah satu governor di Indonesia satu ketika dahulu Dan ini saya harap boleh memberi semangat kepada kita walaupun markah D, tetapi kita masih ada ruang untuk terus berjuang. Ini tanahmu juga, rumah-rumah yang berdesakan, manusia dan setapak, kampung halaman gadis-gadis muda, Buruh-buruh berangkat pagi, pulang sore. Dengan gaji tak pantas, kampung orang-orang kecil yang dibikin bingung oleh surat-surat izin dan kebijaksanaan. Dibikin tunduk mengangguk bongkok. Ini tanah airmu. Di sini kita bukan turis. Baik, dengan situ, terima kasih semua sekali lagi. Saya mendengar kembali kepada bayangan.
Lancung.
Yeah, I know.